musician,
long-distance kayaker,
a businessman,
she looks after animals,
artist,
author.
We interview remarkable people.
They're talented in so many different areas.
You're listening to The Dialogue.
89.7 FM Eastside Radio.
You're listening to 89.7 FM Eastside Radio. This is Natasha and The Dialogue Show, where we interview remarkable people, places, things, and events. And today I have on the show Nicole Gamerov, who is the founder and CEO of My Care Space. Welcome to the show, Nicole.
Hi, Natasha. Thanks for inviting me.
But now I know you as Nikki because we've known each other for quite a long time, actually many, many years. And I have watched this incredible progression of yours from stay-at-home mum, which is when we met and you had your two children, and then moving into the corporate world where you had kind of been before, and then now into what is essentially, I suppose, a philanthropic service to some degree. You know, it's a journey of your heart and soul. And so I'm fascinated to kind of see how this sort of journey has gone. I remember very clearly when we were friends, and obviously we still are friends, but you saying to me that the most difficult thing about being a stay-at-home mum was that your brain just felt like it needed to work. You needed to work. You were one of those women who needed to work. And I realized when I read your biography that you've always done extremely well at school, university, and basically in life. How do you think that's kind of come about for you? What is it that drives you?
It's hard to answer one particular thing. I think part of it is just your DNA. Part of it is just being interested in so many different things and setting the bar really high for yourself. So I've always had a very inquisitive mind. I'm an inquisitive person, and I'm interested in a lot of different things combined with a lot of energy. And I think the energy part is what drives me to do lots of different things. And it's the energy that allows me to push the bar higher and higher. So probably a combination of things.
When people talk about energy, I'm always fascinated because energy can be perceived as different things. I mean, when you say you have a lot of energy, is that physical energy, mental energy? You know, what is it?
What is it? So my long-suffering husband will know that it's probably a combination of both. I struggle to sit down ever, so I probably have some adult form of ADHD, and because of that, it means I'm always on the go, and my day starts at sort of 5:30, 5:45, and I go for a run down to Bondi, and that gives me more energy. So for some people, that would be hard. That gives me more energy, being around the people that I love and my family, my children, my husband. That also gives me energy, and so that drives me then to I guess put that energy into my work. So also having energy for intellectual inquiry. So I'd say it's that whole spectrum of energy.
Like a superhuman.
No, not
It sounds like superhuman to
not
me.
At all. Not at all.
You studied to be an accountant, which is really interesting because it's not, being an accountant doesn't necessarily push the boundaries in many ways in its pure form. You know, it's very tight in terms of an industry. It doesn't allow for a lot of free thought or you know. So you did that, and you went into that as a career to start off with at Deloitte. And how did you find that environment?
So I agree with everything that you say. I mean, being an accountant isn't necessarily the most creative career to go into, but the reason why I decided to follow that path was it was going to give me flexibility. And I'm one of those people, I love having options. I don't like to close doors, and I always like to have choice. And so I knew that being an accountant would allow me to travel and work abroad, whereas some other professions I might need to requalify. So that was actually a key driver. I really wanted to travel overseas with my profession, and that's exactly what accountancy allowed me to do. But very quickly I moved on from that because I did find it stifling, and I knew there were other things that I wanted to do.
You went into financial planning when you landed up in, after you landed up in Australia and after your children kind of had got to the stage where you knew you could leave them. So, not leave them completely, but just leave them at home.
Leave them for a few hours.
You could leave them, exactly. You could leave your children. you landed up going and you've worked for Swiss Re, which was really interesting. We've had this little chat about it, and you said that it's one of the second largest reinsurers
globally. Yes,
I didn't even know what a reinsurer was. So just quickly give me a little, because this is where your little journey for My Care Space has really come from, is from this knowledge base.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the most frustrating things working in the reinsurance industry is that a lot of people don't know what you do. So I always say to people, reinsurers provide insurance to insurance companies. So it's a B2B arrangement. It's like the wholesaler of insurance. So a lot of infrastructure projects would not go ahead without reinsurance. Even your car policy that you buy from your local insurance company, your insurance company only keeps a small portion of the risk. The reinsurers provide the balance sheet and the capital to actually make a lot of what we see around us happen. So they really are critical to the economy, and I loved all my time in the reinsurance and finance industry.
But it was there that you kind of came across, sort of the ideas of what was kind of going on outside. And you said that you just felt you just couldn't connect with the people that you were kind of helping 5 steps down the line. And that frustrated you. And then you had an issue, I think, with your mum, which really was this massive catalyst for you. So tell me a little bit about what happened with your mum.
So, yeah, just going back with the reinsurance industry, and part of what I felt was missing was, although you're helping people and you're helping the economy and businesses, you're so far removed from the people that you're actually helping. And I'd reached that stage where I actually wanted to be closer to the people that I was actually helping. And a few years before that, my mother had been diagnosed with macular degeneration, and unfortunately, at that time, it had progressed so quickly that she couldn't access any medical advancements. So she had lost most of her eyesight, and there were no avenues to restore the eyesight. And that hit her hard. My mother's an incredibly resilient, bubbly, outgoing, gregarious person. Everyone that meets her loves her. And it really hit her hard, and it hit the family hard. And it planted the seed for me to think about people who maybe don't have the support network, don't have that sort of base of resilience, and don't necessarily have access and knowledge about medical advancements, and how would they cope in a situation like this.
You're listening to 89.7 FM Eastside Radio. This is Natasha and The Dialogue Show, where we interview remarkable people, places, things and events. And today I have on the show Nicole Gamerov, who is the founder and CEO of My Care Space. A lot of people find disability uncomfortable. And I think what fascinates me is that you've gone into what is a very uncomfortable space, and you've gone in there to help normalize it. And that, I think, maybe is from your personal experience, but also from you as a human being, and the ability to see that everyone deserves, an extraordinary life. Because I believe that on the website, which I actually read for the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which is what you've based a lot of what you're doing around, they said that it would allow people to live ordinary lives. And you're right. Who wants to live an ordinary life?
Who wants an ordinary life? Everyone needs to start with an ordinary life, but we should all have the ability and access to resources to build an extraordinary life. And really that's what My Care Space is about making those meaningful connections so that people can start building an extraordinary life.
You're listening to 89.7 FM Eastside Radio. This is Natasha and The Dialogue Show, where we interview remarkable people, places, things and events. And today I have on the show Nicole Gamerov, who is the founder and CEO of My Care Space. What is it about human nature that we tend to shy away from that kind of engagement? What have you found?
So I think your observation is correct. And even before I actually started My Care Space, I wasn't sure how to approach people with a disability. And now my children tell me that I think everyone has a disability.
I think they do.
And I do believe that everyone is differently abled. So it's a perception issue. People with disabilities want to be treated just like you and I. And they are just like you and I in terms of the things that they want. They want friends. They want jobs. They want to feel part of the community. They want to be connected. but it's often the way that communities see them and society treats them. So it's just reminding ourselves that we're all human, and we all have the same needs and desires. And when you bring it down to that base level and your intentions are good, we all make mistakes, and sometimes I say the wrong things and I put my foot in it often. But the important thing is to realize that we all want the same things at the end of the day, and that's to be loved and to feel connected. And that's a big part of my care space, is to create those meaningful connections.
We'll get onto my care space in a little bit, but I'm curious about the people that you've met. So you've met some fairly incredible people in the disability arena, Paralympians, people who have really sort of pushed boundaries in an incredible way. I think even your mother, from what I can understand, has actually coped extraordinarily well with her disability. When we say coped extraordinarily well, I think some people with disabilities probably do better than people who don't, because they have to make an effort. When you come across these extraordinary people, what do you think it is that differentiates them? Like a Paralympian who's taken their life and gone, this is what it is that I have, and gone for it. What differentiates these different people?
They don't whinge. I can't stand whinging. And I guess it's part of my personality to just get on with things. And really, most of the people that I've interviewed with my care space and the remarkable people that I've met in my work, they just get on with things. They feel that they do often need to work harder just to get out the door in the morning. They do have to work harder to reach their to find a job potentially, or to actually even just land that job interview. So most of the people that I've met are incredibly resilient, and they focus on the important things in life. And that's what this has made me realize as well, is that often we focus on the wrong things, the unimportant things. So it's a real leveler in terms of what is really important, and focusing on that.
You've been doing My Care Space for 11 months. You launched as a startup. You bootstrapped it on your own. You now have a business partner called Bianca, who is IT based and who is able to help you. So you've got the vision, and clearly I would imagine the financial background and knowledge. And she gives you this technical support, and the two of you are so thrilled to be working together. You've made an excessive number of meaningful connections in the last 11 months. And I was curious when we sat down to chat what those connections actually mean, because I get onto your website, I have a disability. What on earth happens then? And what can I get from it? Why am I even there in the first place?
So first of all, one of the things is what do we mean by connections? So there are a lot of directories. There's Google. You can use Google. Why use My Care Space? And the difference is that we focus on meaningful connections. So connections that actually create an emotional connection or an emotional attachment. So we try and work with service providers, with event organizers, with community organizations that really share the values that we share. And that's all about empowering people and building their own capacity. So it's not about giving handouts. It's not about doing things for others. It's actually about building the individual and helping the individual be the best me that I can possibly be. So those meaningful connections might be that you come onto My Care Space and you need a physiotherapist. You live in Bronte and you put your postcode in, and up comes a list of NDIS registered service providers plus peer reviews. So the idea is we actually invite your peers who have a similar lived experience, share their experience about a physiotherapist. And in that way, not only are you connecting with a physiotherapist, you're getting the information, but you also know that someone in a similar situation has had a good or bad experience. The second way is we share personal stories, and I love this part of my job, connecting with people and finding out what is it about them that differentiates them, and how can that demonstrate to others that they can potentially also get out there and try wheelchair racing, or grab a motorbike or a company that provides a service and go through the Hunter Valley wine tasting.
Have you tried wheelchair racing?
I haven't actually raced, but I have.
Have you had a go at like feeling what it
Yes.
feels like?
It's incredibly difficult. I was at the Oz Day 10K on Australia Day, and just doing 60 seconds is incredibly tough. And that's why one of the stories that I love the most is Madison de Rosario, who we interviewed last year, and she spoke about body image, and that actually changed forever the way I will ever think about my own body. But the point is that these stories can help other people consider what are their options. If this person can do it, maybe I can do it. Just give it a go, and that's another meaningful connection that we can create.
When people kind of come on and use the service now, I understand they have already received some type of package, some type of funding package from the National Disability Insurance Scheme. So that came in to give all people the opportunity of being able to access funds to help them improve their health or their experience or whatever. And then you have service providers who have registered, and so then you kind of bring these two people sort of together, and that helps build an online community. Do you have online community forums and places where people can chat and where they can kind of meet one another, and maybe a dating site or something? You get a whole lot of things going on there.
Well, we actually we have that idea has been requested from someone in our community. She has a son with an intellectual disability who's looking to find a girlfriend, some love, and yeah. So we're inundated with these sorts of requests, and there's no shortage of input from the community. So the question is, what are the things that we need to prioritize on it, and what are the key things that people will actually value? So we have to decide, well, what are the connections that we're going to make? But we actually also do face-to-face connections. So we have been running some Get Connected workshops in the community with local councils, with a few other online platforms like Care Seekers and Toosley, who are providing resources for people online to help them get connected. And the idea is that we have to get down to a community level, council level, and work at a grassroots level so that people can actually see the face of My Care Space and see who we are, and help connect people with the technology. So other things we do are webinars. We've got a fantastic group of panelists on Friday for a webinar called Autism and the NDIS, and we have over 100 people who have registered for that. Not only will they be connecting with each other, but they've shared their questions, and so we will be answering their questions. So there might be a mum in Bowral who has a question that relates to a mother in Queensland, and we can answer that.
You can set them up. That's pretty amazing. Now, you've got your own family, obviously, that you love very much. I know that's very important to you, and a fantastic husband who is also, I think, in many ways about care, and he's very involved in yoga, and also has a brilliant brain, and so you're in that kind of space anyway. But you were saying to me that as a startup, you feel that you're sometimes neglectful of the people that are the most important to you, and that sometimes you forget because you're working so hard for everyone else. And balance is really important. So how are you managing this balance? I mean, you're obviously aware of it.
So I won't pretend that it's easy. It's tricky. It's a constant juggle being a working mom, and a working mom that probably sets her expectations of everyone around her very high. So yeah, probably my husband is the person who's been neglected the most in this journey, but he's also been very, very supportive of what we're doing with My Care Space, and has been a part of that journey. And so it's very fulfilling for both of us to see it come to life, and to see how people are actually benefiting from it. The kids are involved, and I get them involved when I have to go to an event on a Sunday or on a public holiday. I've started taking them with me, and they're benefiting immensely from that as well. So, but keeping a balance is something that I'm very aware of, and that's my motto for this year. And I think that's the detriment of having high energy levels is that you try and do too much. So reminding yourself every now and again that having a break or taking time out is not a bad thing. So I do yoga twice a week. I try, and I run at least 3 times a week to Bondi, and that helps me keep the balance and remember, what are the really important things, and the people. It's the people in your life that support you that I think at the end of the day are the most important things.
You're listening to 89.7 FM Eastside Radio. This is Natasha and The Dialogue Show, where we interview remarkable people, places, things and events. And today I have on the show Nicole Gamerov, who is the founder and CEO of My Care Space. Let's talk a little bit about statistics. I was reading statistically 1 in 5 people have a disability. There are how many million in Australia? I think
over 4 million Australians have a disability.
And when they're talking about that, are they talking about every disability, or are they talking about simply physical disabilities? What is that? Because, we were saying that I was asking you who you help, and you were saying everyone. And I said, well, mental health, mental health. And mental health has a very long bow,
Yes.
So you were laughing and you just said, no, we just want to help everyone, everyone that falls into that area. So when we talk statistics, give me some ideas about what we're talking about. Yes. In terms of numbers of people.
Yes. So in Australia, the NDIA is going to focus on people who have a permanent and significant disability, and that's about 460,000 people. However, there's about over 4 million people in Australia living with a form of disability, and so that means that's 1 in 5 Australians. So if you look at your child in their classroom, potentially 5 children may have a disability. In a classroom of 25, 5 children may have a disability, may develop a disability or an injury. And what you realize is actually most of us know somebody with a disability or have a loved one with a disability. The difference is that 90% of disabilities are actually invisible. So what that might mean is someone might have a mental health condition that you might not be aware of. Someone may be visually impaired, but because of the way that they cope, you might not be aware of that. So it's really important in terms of creating awareness around people with disabilities that we need to be more inclusive, but also diversity is really important. And Australia is striving to be an innovative country, yet we don't always embrace diversity. So when we quote these numbers, the important thing is for people to realize that diversity is all around us. We just need to embrace it. And then I think great things happen.
Interesting. You talk about diversity. It's taken us this long to get same-sex marriage bill through, which is kind of absolutely ridiculous, something that really shouldn't have even needed an answer or a question in the first place. So I can only imagine what a lot of these other people, and particularly not just the people, but the families and the parents. I think the difficulty, and I'm not sure if I'm right here, but when a parent sees a child or has a child with a disability, it must break their heart. It breaks their hearts when we have children who don't. So I can only imagine what that must be like and how desperate they must feel.
Well, a lot of people, we talk to a lot of people and we listen to people, both people with disabilities, families and carers, and the providers. And a lot of parents are emotionally, financially and physically depleted because of the strains that are put on them. And we have so many single parents that actually register with My Care Space. And a lot of those parents are at risk of becoming isolated, or they themselves then start having mental health issues. And that for me is particularly disturbing, is that these people need to feel connected. And having a child with a disability, I think initially a lot of parents find it quite difficult to come to terms with. But for most of them, they love their child just like you love your child and I love my 3 children. And that's who your child is. And you deal with the challenges that are presented to you and you adjust. And most people adjust to the new norm and their lives will fit around their new circumstances. So most of the parents that I've met are incredibly resilient. They are very focused on their children and building the best lives for their children. The part that I struggle with is a lot of parents aren't informed. They don't necessarily know what's available in terms of services, and that I find particularly disturbing, because how can you give your child the best life if you aren't informed about what's available, whether it's the funding or whether it's the services? And many of these services are free. In a country like Australia, there's an inordinate amount of free services, community-based services, but people aren't always necessarily accessing them because they aren't aware of them.
How are you, and we're running out of time, so very quickly, how are you letting people know that My Care Space is available, that it's out there, that it's a resource for people? I'm assuming it's free to sign up.
It's free to sign up, absolutely. It's free to sign up as a person with a disability, carer, family member, and even for service providers, there's a free option. We're also, so the way that we're trying to get the word out is by using, obviously, social media as much as possible, and their limitations there. But we're also doing a lot of face-to-face forums, because we believe at the end of the day people want meaningful connections, and the technology just facilitates that. So we are doing webinars, we're doing grassroots Get Connected series, where we're actually meeting at councils and libraries.
So that's what I want to find out. In terms of government support, is there a way forward with government support for what you're doing? I mean, is there a way for our government to kind of work with you to help disseminate and use you as a resource for this disability, fund that they've set up? Surely that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and you're spot on, Natasha. And we actually spent a bit of time last year responding to some government tenders and grants, because we are right there at what we believe the sweet spot of filling the gap where the government doesn't have the capacity themselves to do these types of workshops, to get connected at that face-to-face grassroots level. So we're stepping in, helping build individuals' capacity, making those linkages. And there is funding out there. We're waiting to hear. So there's something called information ILC funding, which is basically to do exactly this, provide funding to organizations who are creating information linkages, referrals, and building people's capacity. But it's also about building the capacity and awareness for the businesses. So a lot of mainstream businesses, what we want them to do is become more inclusive, and to think about the disability dollar. How many of their customers actually have a disability, and how are they actually responding to those customer needs? So there's a win-win situation there. If businesses are open to this, if businesses are open to embracing the NDIA, they will flourish too.
Right, we've come to the end of the interview, which always seems to be the fastest and most furious thing in the entire universe, because I can always ask 1,000 questions. Website address is www.mycarespace.com.au. It's really simple and easy, and it's something that if you have a disability or somebody that you know does, share it, get them to log on and register. It is free, and I think absolutely something that is going to grow and grow and grow and really be incredibly helpful. Thank you so much for coming in. We will be back next week with another fantastic interview.